Prince Harry never imagined this moment would come. The same country that once screamed his name, waved flags, and treated him and Meghan Markle like royalty mixed with movie stars has now delivered something far colder. Silence. And not just silence, but a brutal public shrug that left insiders whispering one dangerous word: humiliation. What was meant to be a triumphant return to one of their former strongest fan bases reportedly turned into a reality check so sharp it could be felt from the airport runway to the final exit gate. Harry walked in expecting old magic. Instead, Australia handed him a mirror. Rewind back to 2018 when everything looked golden. Harry and Meghan arrived in Australia fresh from their wedding, glowing with headlines, charm, and endless momentum. They were the hottest couple on the planet. The streets were packed, crowds waited for hours, cameras chased every smile, every wave, every glance. Australia did not just welcome them, it celebrated them. The energy felt electric, almost feverish, as if the nation had adopted them overnight. Harry looked proud. Meghan looked unstoppable. It was the kind of reception even seasoned royals dream about but rarely receive.
It was a hug from Harry that brought a woman to tears. India Brown had been waiting patiently since 4 a.m.
Just to see them will be amazing, but if I'm lucky enough to hug Prince Harry, it would just be phenomenal.
Then came another emotional bombshell. During that same tour, the pregnancy announcement. Suddenly, the fairy tale became even bigger. Australia was among the first to hear the deeply personal news, and many people felt honored. It created warmth, excitement, and a sense that this couple trusted the public with a special chapter of their lives. The applause became louder. The affection became deeper. At that point, Harry and Meghan looked untouchable, like they could do no wrong.
A pregnant Meghan and her husband Prince Harry kicked off their royal duties down under on Tuesday by cuddling a koala at an Australian zoo. The couple officially opened a new science institute in Sydney, mixing with locals during the first day of their packed trip. It's their first engagement since Kensington Palace announced they were expecting a baby in the spring.
But then everything changed, quietly at first. Then, dramatically, they stepped away from royal duties. The interviews began, the accusations, the documentaries, the Hollywood deals, the carefully staged reveals, the endless cycle of grievance mixed with glamour. Piece by piece, the image that once sparkled started cracking. What had looked like liberation to some looked like opportunism to others. And with every headline, public patience seemed to thin.
Buckingham Palace has confirmed that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will not be returning as working members of the royal family. Prince Harry and Meghan stepped down from royal duties last year and moved to the United States. The couple, who are expecting their second child, have been stripped of their patronages and honorary titles, which will be returned to the Queen and distributed elsewhere in the royal family.
Years passed. California mansions replaced palace corridors. Streaming contracts replaced ceremonial duty. Then came the return to Australia. But this time, they were not arriving as working royals backed by the institution. They were arriving as celebrities with private interests, personal branding, and no official royal authority behind them. That distinction mattered more than anyone in their camp may have expected, because Australia noticed immediately. Before their plane even touched down, warning signs were already flashing. A petition reportedly gained tens of thousands of signatures demanding that no taxpayer money be used to support the visit. Think about that. Before the first handshake, before the first photo op, before the first speech, a public movement had already formed to say one thing clearly: not on our dime. That message was not subtle. It was loud, sharp, and impossible to spin away. Suddenly, damage control reportedly kicked into motion. Clarifications were issued. Statements stressed that the trip was private, no government involvement, no public funding. But by then, the mood had already shifted, because once people begin asking why you are really coming, the glossy script starts tearing apart. Was this a meaningful visit, a comeback attempt, a branding exercise, a soft launch for future business deals? The questions kept multiplying. And then came the most visible blow of all: the crowds, or rather, the lack of them. Gone were the giant cheering masses of 2018. Gone were the packed streets and emotional frenzy. In their place came smaller, more controlled gatherings, many already in the area rather than turning out specifically to see them. The contrast was brutal. Not because there were no people at all, but because everyone remembered what it used to look like. That memory made the difference sting harder. Observers said Meghan kept smiling. Cameras still clicked, but the atmosphere felt different. Cooler, more cautious, less spontaneous, less excited. It was as if the public had moved on while the couple were still trying to replay an older scene. And Harry, once the easiest royal to love, now stood in the middle of that shift with nowhere to hide. Media commentary added fuel. Some reportedly described the trip as a cosplay royal tour, looking like royalty on the surface, but lacking the official purpose and genuine public pull that once came naturally. That phrase spread quickly because it captured something uncomfortable: the appearance of status without the machinery that once sustained it, a crown shadow without the crown itself. On the streets, reactions were mixed. Some people barely knew they had arrived. Others questioned why they were there at all. That may be the harshest twist of all. Not outrage, not anger, indifference. Because controversy can still attract attention. Indifference suggests the spotlight is moving elsewhere. And for public figures who thrive on visibility, that can be the most dangerous signal of all. Then came Meghan's major event, a headline retreat positioned as one of the trip's central attractions. Expectations were high, but reports suggested tickets did not sell out and attendance fell short of target numbers. Photos of partially filled seating sparked more whispers. Was the demand overestimated? Had the Sussex name lost its pull? Or were audiences simply no longer willing to pay premium prices for polished inspiration packaged as access? Some critics reportedly felt the event centered more on Meghan herself than delivering clear value to attendees. Others speculated the trip was also testing future commercial opportunities in the Australian market. If true, that would mean this visit was bigger than speeches and handshakes. It was market research wrapped in glamour, branding dressed as goodwill. And once that suspicion enters public conversation, every appearance starts looking strategic. Meanwhile, Harry had his own uncomfortable chapter unfolding. He attended a mental health speaking engagement, but reports claimed ticket prices were slashed sharply before the event in an attempt to boost attendance. For a prince once able to draw crowds effortlessly, that image was jarring. The same Harry who once commanded global fascination now facing discounted seats and softer demand. That is not just a business issue, it is a symbolic one. And perhaps that is the real scandal hidden beneath the headlines. Harry now appears trapped between two worlds, no longer fully royal, not fully embraced as a celebrity either. The institution he left gave him status. The new world he entered demands constant popularity. If both begin slipping at once, where does that leave him? What made the Australia trip so painful was not one bad headline or one empty seat. It was the pattern, the repeated signals, the subtle moments that together painted a picture no public relations team could fully erase. Harry once represented something effortless, the fun prince, the relatable royal, the man crowds naturally warmed to. But in Australia, the warmth seemed rationed, controlled, measured. And for someone who built his public identity on being loved without trying, that kind of shift can feel devastating. Sources and observers began focusing on Harry's body language throughout the visit. A smile here, a stiff glance there, a distant expression during events that were supposed to look uplifting. Nothing dramatic enough to become an official scandal, yet enough for gossip watchers to start asking whether the pressure was finally showing. Was he simply tired? Was he frustrated? Or was he privately realizing that the fairy tale reinvention he bet everything on was no longer landing the way it once did? Silence invites speculation, and Harry's silence has become one of the loudest sounds in this story. Then there is Meghan, still polished, still camera ready, still projecting control, but even that confidence became part of the controversy. Critics argued the visit felt overmanaged, as if every handshake and charitable stop had been designed for optics rather than impact. Hospital visits, shelter appearances, carefully timed moments of compassion. On paper, it looked generous, but to skeptics, it looked staged. And once people suspect choreography, sincerity becomes harder to sell. That is where the deeper tension lives. Harry and Meghan did not just lose crowds, they may have lost the benefit of the doubt. In 2018, people saw romance, youth, possibility. In 2026, many seem to see branding, messaging, and calculated appearances. Whether fair or unfair, perception drives public life. And perception in Australia appeared far colder than before. Some insiders believe Harry is paying the highest price because he had the most to lose. Meghan entered royal life as an outsider with her own fame, her own ambitions, her own identity. Harry was the one born inside the machine. He was the one with inherited status, public affection, military respect, and decades of emotional goodwill. When the couple broke from the palace, many assumed he would carry enough popularity to thrive anywhere. But what if that popularity was never fully separate from the role he left behind? That question now hangs over every tour, every interview, every event, with unsold seats and muted applause. And Australia was the perfect place for that truth to surface, because Australia remembered them at their peak. It remembered the crowds, the cheers, the pregnancy joy, the glamorous optimism. So when the return looked smaller, quieter, and more commercial, the contrast became impossible to ignore. This was not just another trip. It was a side-by-side comparison with history, and history was winning. The harshest commentary claimed the Sussex brand had become overexposed. Too many interviews, too many complaints, too many announcements, too many projects centered on themselves. Public sympathy, once powerful, may have been stretched thin by repetition. In modern celebrity culture, audiences can forgive mistakes, but they rarely forgive boredom. And some critics now say the couple's biggest danger is not hatred, it is fatigue. Yet there is another side to the story. Supporters argue they are being judged unfairly, held to impossible standards, and criticized no matter what they do. They say any reduced crowd would happen to many public figures in a changed media landscape. They say private visits should not be compared to official royal tours backed by state planning and institutional power. They insist the backlash says more about media obsession than the couple themselves. That defense exists, and it matters. But even defenses cannot erase visible optics when cameras capture empty space where frenzy once stood. And what of Harry personally? That may be the saddest mystery of all. Because behind the titles and headlines is a man who seemed to want freedom, love, privacy, purpose. Yet somehow every attempt to secure those things has created more noise, more exposure, and more public scrutiny. He left one trap and may have entered another, a life where relevance must constantly be renewed through appearances, deals, and public attention. Royal duty had rules. Celebrity reinvention has none. The Australia trip also reignited whispers about the couple's future strategy. If public speaking events struggle, if premium retreats fail to sell out, if comeback tours draw lukewarm reactions, what comes next? More documentaries? New business launches? Another memoir wave? A rebrand focused on wellness, philanthropy, or lifestyle products? Every move now feels higher stakes because the old cushion of guaranteed fascination may be thinning. And perhaps that explains why this moment feels bigger than one country's reaction. Australia may have delivered a warning that other markets quietly feel the same. Once adored names are no longer automatically enough. Prestige fades when repeated too often. Nostalgia cannot be monetized forever. Audiences evolve. Attention moves. And even princes learn that applause has an expiration date. Still, stories like this rarely end where people expect. Public image can collapse fast, but it can also recover unexpectedly. One genuine project, one surprising act of humility, one meaningful success can reset everything. Harry and Meghan know that. Their critics know that too, which is why everyone is watching the next move so closely. Because if Australia was a rejection, it may also become a turning point. For now, though, the final image lingers. A prince returning to a place that once adored him, only to discover affection is not permanent. Crowds do not wait forever. Memories do not guarantee loyalty. And the loudest message Australia may have sent was not shouted at all. It was delivered in reduced lines, discounted tickets, unanswered excitement, and a silence that said everything.